Dear friends, what mistake did a woman make on the sacred night of Shabbat Barat that brought upon her the dreadful wrath of Allah? As a result, she transformed into a terrifying creature on this holy night. What sin did she commit on Shabbat Barat that made her an example of warning for others? Dear friends, stay with us until the end of this incident, as it is a deeply thought-provoking and lesson-filled story. In a small town in Bangladesh, there lived a man named Rafiq Mian and his wife Rabia. Rafiq was a simple and pious man, devoted to his prayers and earning a halal livelihood. However, his wife Rabia was harsh-hearted and ill-tempered. She had a sharp tongue and a hot temper. She would easily get angry with people and did not show much respect to her husband. Allah had not blessed them with children. Rafiq would often cry in his prayers at night, begging Allah for a child. But Rabia did not care about it. She used to say, "So what if we don't have children? All we need to live in this world is wealth and respect." Rafiq deeply longed for a child, but he was content with Allah's will. His wife would taunt him, saying, "Why do you keep crying for children? If Allah has decided this for us, then we should accept it." However, her tone carried more arrogance than patience. Rafiq continued with his work and always prayed to Allah, saying, "O Allah, if children are not written in my destiny, then at least increase my patience." But Rabia was too preoccupied with worldly matters and was growing harsher day by day. One day, while returning from work, Rafiq found a little girl on the roadside. She was around 3 or 4 years old. Her clothes were dirty and she looked hungry, thirsty, and scared. Feeling compassion, Rafiq approached her and asked, "Dear child, where is your home?" But the child was too frightened to speak. The fear and helplessness in her eyes were evident. Rafiq's heart melted for this innocent girl. He thought, "Perhaps Allah has sent her to me as my responsibility." He picked up the child in his arms and walked towards his home. When he reached home, Rabia was standing at the door. As soon as she saw the girl, her face changed. "Who is this?" she asked in a harsh tone. Rafiq gently put the child down and replied, "She is an orphan girl I found on the street. She was hungry and thirsty, so I thought I should bring her home and take care of her." Rabia's face turned red with anger. "How could you even think that I would keep her in my house?" she snapped. "Children should be our own. There is no benefit in raising someone else's child." Rafiq tried to explain calmly, "My dear wife, this child is also a creation of Allah. If we have not been blessed with children, then isn't this orphan a test for us? Maybe if we accept her, Allah will grant us happiness in our destiny." But Rabia furiously interrupted, "No, I have no interest in raising someone else's child. If you feel so much sympathy for her, take her to a madrasa or an orphanage." Rafiq's heart broke. He wondered, can a woman's heart be so cruel that she does not even feel mercy for an innocent child? Rafiq had been patient for so long, but today his wife's cruelty towards an orphan was too much for him to tolerate. He firmly said, "Allah did not give us children, but if He is giving us a chance to care for another's child, isn't that His mercy? Why has your heart become so hard? Do you not care about Allah's reward and blessings?" Rabia's anger reached its peak. She snapped back, "I have no interest in raising someone else's child. If you love her so much, then keep her with you. I cannot stay here." In her rage, she started packing her belongings and within moments left for her parents' house. As she was leaving, she bitterly remarked, "Mark my words, other people's children can never become your own." Rafiq felt sorrowful hearing her words, but he had made up his mind. He picked up the child in his arms and lovingly said, "My dear, from today, you are my daughter. I will raise you as if you were my own child." From that moment on, Rafiq took full responsibility for the little girl. He bathed her, dressed her in clean clothes, and worked hard day and night to provide for her. Every day when he returned home from work, the child would run into his arms with joy. Her innocent laughter filled Rafiq's home with happiness. He named her Fatima. He ensured that she received both Islamic and worldly education. She grew up with innocence and purity, bringing peace to Rafiq's heart. By now, Rafiq was convinced that this child was truly a blessing sent by Allah. He would fall into prostration and pray, "O Allah, you have given me this child as a blessing. Grant me the ability to protect and care for her." A few months later, Rabia's family advised her to return to her husband. They said, "Rafiq is a righteous man. You cannot leave him alone like this. It is not right to break the bond of marriage just out of anger." Rabia also realized that living alone was not easy, and she finally agreed to return, but only for her husband. She still harbored hatred for the innocent girl. When she returned home, Rafiq welcomed her with joy, but she created a cold atmosphere as soon as she entered. As soon as her eyes fell on Fatima, she turned her face away. Rafiq said lovingly, "I'm glad you have returned. Now we will live together like before. But I hope you will accept this child too. She is very innocent and has done nothing to harm you." Rabia replied harshly, "I came back for you, not for this child. You are raising her. That is your decision, but I have nothing to do with her." Rafiq sighed deeply and remained patient. He thought, maybe with time, her heart will soften. The atmosphere in the house became tense. Rafiq loved Fatima dearly, but Rabia treated her with cold indifference. She would not even look at the child, and if Fatima ever approached her, she would scold her and drive her away. If Fatima accidentally dropped something or made a small mistake, Rabia would lash out at her in anger. "Who knows where this wretched girl came from? She is neither my blood nor my child, so why should I tolerate her?" she would say bitterly. Rafiq felt hurt seeing all this, but he remained silent. He was certain that, with Allah's will, everything would be okay. One day, Fatima fell ill. She was burning with a high fever, tossing and turning in pain. Rafiq sat beside her all night. But Rabia did not ask about her even once. Rafiq's heart broke, and he fell into prostration, praying, "O Allah, increase my patience and protect this innocent child." As the days passed, Rabia's behavior toward Fatima became even harsher. She considered her an orphan and a stranger, treating her with cruelty. When Rafiq was home, she remained somewhat restrained, but as soon as he left for work, she would start mistreating the child. Every morning, she would make Fatima do all the household chores. Clean the yard first, then fetch water, wash the dishes, and don't forget to light the stove, she commanded in a stern voice. The innocent Fatima, fearful and obedient, would do as she was told. If she made the slightest mistake, Rabia would scold her, saying, "This wretched girl has come to ruin our peace. She doesn't even let us sit in peace." Sometimes, in her rage, she would even hit her. Fatima was a pious child. Rafiq had taught her how to pray and recite the Quran, and she worshipped Allah sincerely. But even this did not please Rabia. If Fatima performed ablution and stood for prayer, Rabia would taunt her, "Oh, now you've started showing off. Finish your work first, then do whatever you want." Many times when Fatima woke up at night for tahajjud, the pre-dawn prayer, and wept silently in supplication to Allah, Rabia would get angry and push her, saying, "Stop pretending to cry all night. Go to sleep." Fatima's innocent heart was deeply wounded, but she remained patient. She never complained to her father because she did not want to diminish his happiness. Sometimes Rafiq suspected that Rabia was mistreating Fatima, but Fatima always reassured him, saying, "Abu Ami is completely fine with me." She hid her pain and only prayed to Allah, "O Allah, you are my only refuge. Show me a way." One morning, Fatima was busy with housework. The weather was cold, and her tiny hands had turned red while washing the dishes. But Rabia had no concern. For her. "Hurry up! Why are you so slow?" Rabia shouted. Fatima, frightened, started working faster. But in her haste, her hand slipped and a glass fell to the ground and shattered. That was it. Rabia's rage erupted. Her eyes burned like embers. "You wretched girl, is this all you know, breaking things and ruining us?" she yelled. In her anger, Rabia grabbed a metal pot nearby and, without thinking, struck Fatima on the head. A loud thud echoed. Fatima let out a faint cry. Her eyes welled up with tears, but she remained patient. "Oh Allah, you are watching everything. You are the greatest. Judge, I will not complain to anyone. Just grant me more patience." Saying this, she quietly began picking up the broken glass from the floor as if nothing had happened. But inside, her innocent heart had been deeply wounded. One day, Rabia sent Fatima to the market to buy some groceries. It was a chilly morning, with a light breeze blowing. Fatima, covering her head with a scarf, hurried along. The wound on her head had still not healed completely, but she never complained. As she neared the market, her eyes suddenly fell on an old man sitting under a tree. His beard was white, his face radiated a divine glow, and there was a strange warmth in his eyes. He was counting prayer beads. Fatima felt an inexplicable sense of reverence for him. As she passed by, the old man noticed her and smiled gently. He called out, "Daughter, wait a moment." Fatima respectfully stopped and walked toward him with her head lowered. She greeted him with salam, Islamic greeting. The old man gently asked, "Child, who are you and where are you going alone so early in the morning?" Fatima politely replied, "Baba, I am going to the market. My mother sent me to buy some groceries." The old man looked closely at her innocent face. He noticed the exhaustion and deep pain hidden in her eyes. Thinking for a moment, he gently said, "My child, your face tells me that you have endured a lot of hardships. Am I right?" Hearing this, Fatima's eyes filled with tears. She lowered her gaze but said nothing. The elderly man softly said, "My child, the fruit of patience is always sweet. Allah loves His servants, so He tests them. But remember, Allah never commits injustice. His mercy is always near. It only takes a moment to call upon Him." These words comforted Fatima's heart. It felt as if someone had finally understood her pain. The old man, counting his prayer beads, continued, "My dear, if someone oppresses you, do not be afraid. Allah is the greatest judge, and whenever you feel overwhelmed by suffering, recite this supplication. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. Allah will surely grant you the best reward for your patience." Saying this, the old man placed a date in her hand and smiled. Fatima engraved his words in her heart. She felt as if she had received something that would ease all her sorrows. It was the blessed night of Shabbat Barat. The moon was shining brightly in the sky, spreading its light across the land. The atmosphere was filled with an unexplainable peace. This was the night when Allah forgives His servants, erases their sins, and opens the doors of mercy. Fatima also valued this night deeply. She performed ablution, went to her small room, and sat in a corner reciting the Holy Quran. Her voice was sweet, and when she recited the verses, it felt as if they were soothing the heart. The words of Allah are a cure for every pain, she thought to herself. But suddenly, a furious voice came from outside. "Fatima, where have you disappeared? I told you to do some work, and here you are, putting on a show." Fatima panicked, but softly replied, "Ami, I will be there moment. This is the night of Shabbat Barat, and I was just reciting the Quran." Upon hearing this, Rabia's anger flared even more. She stormed into the room. "You will read the Quran when I have given you work to do? Do what I told you first. Stop pretending." Fatima's heart trembled. She quickly bent down, picked up the Holy Quran and pressed it against her chest. Tears streamed down her face, but Rabia showed no mercy. In her rage, Rabia pushed Fatima and began beating her mercilessly. "How many times have I told you not to? Ignore my orders? When will this stranger's child leave my house?" Fatima cried silently, but she never complained. She simply wiped her tears with her scarf and whispered in her heart, "O Allah, you see everything. You are my only refuge." It was the night of Shabbat Barat. The whole city was engaged in prayers and worship, but this innocent child was enduring cruelty. Even the moon in the sky seemed sorrowful upon witnessing this injustice. That night, Fatima fell into prostration and prayed, "O Allah, grant me more patience, but also free me from this oppression." It was the sacred night of Shabbat Barat. While the entire city was immersed in prayer and supplication, Rabia remained engaged in her harshness and cruelty. But the cries of the innocent Fatima had reached the heavens. With tearful eyes, Fatima called out to her Lord, "O Allah, you are the greatest judge. You never tolerate injustice. If I am innocent, please hear my plea." As the night grew deeper, something strange and terrifying happened. Rabia, who was preparing to sleep, suddenly collapsed to the ground. A violent tremor shook her body, and she began to writhe in agony. Her screams echoed throughout the house. "Ah! What is happening to me? My body is burning! Someone help me!" Her voice was so horrifying that the entire village woke up. Neighbors rushed toward her house, but when they witnessed the scene inside, their bodies shivered with fear. Rabia's body was slowly transforming. Her eyes turned blood red. Her hands and feet began to deform. Her mouth stretched unnaturally. She was no longer human. She was turning into a terrifying creature. People stepped back in fear. No one could understand what was happening. Some elderly villagers murmured, "This is the punishment of Allah. She tortured an innocent soul, and now she is facing her punishment." Rabia rolled on the ground, screaming in pain. But now, her screams were no longer human. Her entire form had turned into a monstrous, horrific beast. Fear spread throughout the village. Some people began reciting verses from the Quran, while others started praying for protection. Fatima, who had been crying, now looked up at the sky and whispered, "O Allah, you are the greatest judge. I never sought revenge, but you heard my plea." Rabia, now a grotesque creature, ran out of the house in terror, but no one allowed her to enter their homes. She was neither human nor animal. She had become an ugly, terrifying being. One of the elders in the village declared, "This is a sign from Allah. When a person crosses all limits of cruelty and sin, Allah sends such a punishment that serves as a lesson for the entire world." After that night, Rabia was never seen again. Some said she ran away into the forests. Others believed she disappeared, under the wrath of Allah, leaving behind no trace. After this punishment, the villagers gathered around Fatima, seeking her forgiveness. They said, "My child, we could not protect you, but now we will accept you as our own daughter." Rafiq, who loved his daughter more than anything, held her close and wept, thanking Allah for protecting his innocent child. Fatima also fell into prostration, whispering, "O Allah, you have rewarded my patience in the most incredible way. Truly, you are the greatest judge." From that night on, Fatima's life changed forever. Allah's mercy showered upon her. The villagers treated her with honor and love. This incident became a lesson for the entire village. People would say, "Never oppress an innocent soul, for Allah's punishment spares no one." Thus, peace and blessings returned to Fatima's life. Dear friends, never be unjust to anyone. If you see oppressors thriving in this world, remember, justice will be served on the day of judgment. Therefore, always do good deeds, pray and worship Allah. If this story has taught you a lesson, share it with your family, friends, and relatives so they too can learn from it. And don't forget to write Allahu Akbar in the comment box. Thank you.